The honeymoon phase, as everyone calls it, truly felt like a dream with Ethan. Our first few years were a tapestry woven with shared laughter, whispered secrets in the dark, and the comfortable silence that settles between two people who deeply understand each other. We'd built our cozy nest in a quiet, tree-lined street in a San Diego suburb, a 2-story house that felt like our own little sanctuary. The discussions about paint colors and furniture, the excited anticipation of finally getting that golden retriever we'd promised ourselves, those were the hallmarks of our early years. My career as a software engineer was fulfilling, the challenges keeping my mind sharp, and my team felt like a second family. Ethan, with his natural charm and persuasive skills, was climbing the ladder in his marketing firm, each new client when a cause for celebration. Then Chloe drifted more prominently into our orbit. I knew Ethan had a long-standing friendship with her from their college days. He'd spoken of her occasionally during our dating years, painting her as a quirky, artistic soul. But it wasn't until after the wedding that Chloe's presence in our lives intensified. Suddenly, she was the go-to for everything. Need a second opinion on a new couch? Call Chloe. Got a last-minute invitation to a party where I wouldn't know. Anyone? Ethan would suggest bringing Chloe along. So you have someone to talk to if I get caught up. Initially, I didn't read too much into it. Ethan was always emphatic about their platonic bond. She's like a sister to me, Ava. You... No, he'd say, often with a reassuring hand on my arm. We've been through so much together, but it's purely friendship. He'd even joke. Honestly, sometimes I think she understands me better than anyone else in the world, besides you, of course. That, besides you, of course, always felt tacked on, a little too rehearsed. But as the months turned into years, a nagging unease began to settle in my stomach. It wasn't one specific event, but a slow accumulation of subtle inconsistencies and moments that just felt off. Ethan started guarding his phone with a newfound intensity. He'd angle the screen away from me when he was texting, and at night, I'd often see the soft glow of his screen illuminating his face, long after he'd said goodnight. The rhythmic tap-tap-tapping a silent conversation in the darkness. When I'd casually ask who he was talking to, the answer was almost always the same. Just Chloe, she's having a tough time with a client again. Or, Chloe wanted my advice on a color palette for a new design. Their solo outings also became increasingly frequent and elaborate. Chloe's moving some heavy art pieces this weekend, and her brother is out of town. I told her I'd lend a hand, he'd announce on a Saturday morning, grabbing a banana and a bottle of water as if embarking on a Herculean task. He'd be gone for the entire day, returning in the evening, slightly sweaty but full of anecdotes about the intricacies of transporting oversized canvases. Another time it was, Chloe's feeling really down after a breakup. I told her I'd take her out for dinner to cheer her up. You don't mind, do you, sweetie? Of course, I minded. But the way he phrased it, making it seem like I'd be heartless to object, always left me feeling cornered. These constant acts of friendship, always framed as him being the selfless, supportive friend, began to erode the foundation of trust we had built. My attempts to voice my growing discomfort were met with a carefully orchestrated campaign of dismissal and subtle manipulation. Ava, you're being totally unreasonable, he'd say, his tone shifting from gentle to slightly exasperated. Chloe is my best friend. You are my wife, the love of my life. There's a monumental difference, and frankly, it's a little insulting that you would even insinuate something else is going on. He was a master at turning the tables, making my legitimate concerns seem like manifestations of my own insecurity. Don't you trust me, Ava? He'd ask, his eyes wide with what looked like genuine hurt. It was textbook gaslighting, chipping away at my self-assurance, making me question my own perceptions. I started to feel like I was the one being unreasonable, the one with the trust issues. Looking back, the signs were glaring, like neon lights against a dark backdrop. The overly long hugs Chloe would give Ethan whenever we met, lingering just a fraction too long, her hand sometimes resting a little too intimately on his arm. The inside jokes they shared, eliciting peals of laughter while leaving me feeling like an awkward third wheel in my own life. The almost imperceptible glances they'd exchange across a crowded room, a silent language passing between them that I wasn't privy to. Individually, these moments seemed fleeting and easily dismissed, but collectively, they painted a disturbing picture, a narrative I desperately didn't want to believe. My gut was screaming at me, but I kept silencing it, clinging to the image of the loving, faithful husband I thought I knew. One ordinary Tuesday, fate, or perhaps my weakened immune system, decided to intervene. I'd had a seemingly harmless chicken salad from the office cafeteria for lunch. By early afternoon, however, my stomach was churning and waves of nausea washed over me. The office lights seemed too bright, the computer screen too jarring. I called my manager, explaining my sudden illness, and decided to head home early. Ethan had mentioned a crucial client meeting downtown that was scheduled to last until at least 5 o'clock. I envisioned myself crawling into bed, pulling the covers over my head, and trying to sleep off whatever bug I had caught. As I fumbled with my keys at the front door, the house felt strangely still. Usually, even in the quiet of the afternoon, there would be some ambient noise, the gentle hum of the refrigerator, the faint ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. But this was absolute silence. I stepped inside, the cool air conditioning a slight comfort to my queasy stomach. I made my way through the living room, my intention solely to reach the sanctuary of our bedroom upstairs, when I heard it. A soft, muffled giggle drifting from the direction of our dining room. My steps faltered mid-stride. Ethan's client. Meeting. It was only a little after 3. He should still be miles away, deep in negotiations. A cold knot of dread tightened in my stomach, eclipsing the discomfort of the food poisoning. Curiosity, morbid and unwelcome, propelled me towards the sound. The dining room door was slightly ajar, a sliver of light escaping into the dim hallway. With a hesitant breath, I pushed it open just enough to peek inside, and the scene that greeted me was like a punch to the gut, a brutal confirmation of my deepest fears. There they were, Ethan and Chloe. Not just talking, not just sharing a friendly hug. They were locked in a passionate embrace, right there at our antique dining room table, a piece of furniture we had lovingly chosen together. Chloe was perched on Ethan's lap, her arms wrapped tightly around his neck, her fingers buried in his hair. Their lips were locked, moving with an intimacy that was far beyond anything platonic. The casual way they were touching, the comfortable familiarity in their movements, spoke volumes about the depth and duration of their affair. This wasn't a fleeting moment of weakness. This was an established pattern of deceit, happening right under my own roof. The room swam before my eyes. The nausea from the food poisoning was a mere flutter compared to the tidal wave of betrayal that crashed over me, stealing my breath and leaving me gasping for air. A choked sob escaped my lips before I could stop it, a sound so small and broken that it barely registered in the charged atmosphere. They sprang apart as if jolted by an electric shock, their faces a mask of guilt and disbelief. Ethan's eyes widened, his mouth agape in a silent "oh" of horrified realization. Chloe's face flushed a deep, embarrassing crimson, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for a secret exit. The air between them crackled with a palpable tension, thick with the unspoken reality of their transgression. "Ava, it's not what it looks like," Ethan stammered, the words sounding hollow and pathetic even to my ears. It was the classic line, the go-to denial of the caught-in-the-act cheater, and it only fueled the burning rage that was beginning to simmer beneath my shock. "Really, Ethan? Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like my husband is having an affair with his best friend in our dining room, on our dining room table," I said, my voice trembling despite my desperate efforts to maintain a semblance of composure. The words felt foreign on my tongue, the reality still too raw to fully process. Chloe mumbled a weak, almost inaudible apology, her eyes fixed on the floral pattern of the rug beneath her feet. Anywhere but on me. I didn't even spare her a glance. My entire being was focused on Ethan, on the man I had vowed to spend my life with, the man who had so casually and repeatedly lied to my face, making me feel like I was the crazy one for even questioning his loyalty. We were just talking. He tried again, his voice barely a whisper, devoid of any conviction. Talking like that? I gestured between them with a shaky hand, my fingers trembling uncontrollably. In our dining room? While I'm home? Sick from work? The absurdity of the situation mixed with the profound hurt created a strange, almost surreal feeling. The confrontation was brief, punctuated by awkward silences and pathetic attempts at explanation. But in that single devastating moment, I knew with absolute certainty that our marriage, the life we had built, was irrevocably broken. The foundation of trust had been shattered beyond repair. Without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving them standing there amidst the wreckage of their deceit. Their guilt, a heavy, suffocating presence in the room. I went upstairs to our bedroom, the place that was once our sanctuary, now tainted by his betrayal. I grabbed an overnight bag, throwing in a few essentials, a change of clothes, and my toiletries. Then, without looking back, I walked out of the house, got into my car, and drove. I ended up at a generic hotel a few miles away. The image of Ethan and Chloe seared into my mind, replaying endlessly like a horrific movie scene. The next few days were a disorienting blur of tears, sleepless nights, and a gnawing, hollow emptiness that seemed to consume me from the inside out. I leaned heavily on Maya, my rock, my best friend since college. I poured out every humiliating detail of Ethan's betrayal, the years of gaslighting, the blatant lies. Maya, ever the sharp and pragmatic one, listened with unwavering patience, her anger growing with each revelation. When I finally ran out of tears, she looked at me with a fierce determination in her eyes. "Ava," she said, her voice firm and resolute, "don't fall apart. Don't give him the satisfaction of seeing you crumble. Start documenting everything, every text, every call, every unexplained expense. And the absolute first thing you need to do, first thing tomorrow, is talk to a lawyer." Taking Maya's advice felt like the only solid ground in the shifting landscape of my life. The next morning, still feeling raw and emotionally battered, I did exactly that. Maya, who worked as a paralegal for a small, reputable law firm, highly recommended Mr. Thompson, a seasoned divorce attorney known for his meticulous approach and fair dealings. My initial consultation with him was a lifeline in the storm. He patiently and clearly explained the intricacies of California's divorce laws, the concept of community property and how it was typically divided, and outlined my rights and options as a spouse in this situation. He stressed the importance of gathering all financial documents, bank statements, investment records, tax returns, loan agreements, and meticulously documenting any communication I had with Ethan moving forward. As Mr. Thompson spoke, his calm demeanor and knowledgeable advice began to cut through the fog of my despair. A sense of purpose, a flicker of determination, ignited within me. My revenge wouldn't be a messy public spectacle, a screaming match fueled by raw emotion. It would be calculated, strategic, and firmly rooted in the legal framework. It would be about protecting myself financially and ensuring that Ethan faced the consequences of his deceitful actions. While California's no-fault divorce policy meant I didn't have to prove Ethan cheated to get a divorce, Mr. Thompson explained that evidence of infidelity, especially a prolonged affair, could sometimes subtly influence settlement negotiations, particularly if it pointed to a pattern of dishonesty or potential misuse of community funds, though the direct impact was limited in a no-fault state. Over the next few weeks, while still reeling from the emotional fallout, I became a meticulous investigator of my own life. I quietly and methodically began gathering information. I combed through our emails, both personal and joint accounts, and meticulously reviewed our phone records, noting the frequency and timing of Ethan's communication with Chloe, especially during times he claimed to be working late or out with other colleagues. I scrutinized our bank statements, both checking and savings, and noticed a series of unexplained withdrawals and charges that coincided with the timeline of their supposed friendly outings. I even discreetly took photos of some of the more extravagant gifts Chloe had openly displayed in our house: a designer handbag, an expensive piece of jewelry, gifts that Ethan had vaguely attributed to appreciative clients or work bonuses. During this period, acting on Mr. Thompson's advice, I also took the crucial step of opening a separate, secure bank account in my name only. I started diverting half of my paycheck into this account. I knew I needed to build a financial safety net for myself. Ethan had always taken the lead in managing our finances, and in my trusting naivety, I had remained largely in the dark about the true extent and distribution of our assets. This newfound financial independence, however small in its initial stages, gave me a sense of control I desperately needed. The day I finally signed the divorce papers, ready to be filed with the court, I felt an odd mixture of profound sadness and a surprising surge of relief. I had followed Mr. Thompson's instructions to the letter, gathering all the necessary documentation and preparing myself for the next stage. The filing itself was done quietly, without any dramatic confrontation. Ethan was still operating under the delusion that this was a temporary setback, a hurdle we would overcome, that I would eventually forgive him, and we could somehow magically rewind time to our previous normal life. The look of utter shock and disbelief that washed over Ethan's face when he was served with the divorce papers was almost comical, if the circumstances weren't so deeply painful. The color drained from his face, leaving him pale and ashen, and his jaw literally dropped open. He sputtered incoherently, his mind seemingly unable to grasp the reality of what was happening. Chloe, who unsurprisingly was with him at their favorite trendy downtown cafe when the process server arrived, looked equally stunned, her carefully constructed facade of innocent friendship crumbling before my very eyes, or rather, the process server's eyes. The initial stages of the divorce proceedings were marked by Ethan's denial and attempts at manipulation. He called me incessantly, leaving tearful voicemails begging for forgiveness, promising things would change, that Chloe meant nothing. He even tried to gaslight me again, suggesting that I had overreacted, that I had misunderstood the situation in our dining room. But this time, his words held no power over me. I had seen the truth with my own eyes, and I had the unwavering support of Maya and the solid legal guidance of Mr. Thompson. I refused to engage in emotional arguments or be drawn back into his web of lies. I simply directed all communication to Mr. Thompson. As the legal process moved forward, Ethan's initial arrogance began to wane. He quickly realized that I was not bluffing, that I was serious about ending our marriage, and that I had competent legal representation on my side. Mr. Thompson, with his calm but firm demeanor, skillfully navigated the settlement negotiations. He presented the financial documentation I had diligently collected, painting a clear picture of our shared assets and Ethan's somewhat opaque financial dealings. While we didn't dwell on the infidelity in court filings due to California's no-fault policy, Mr. Thompson strategically used the evidence of Ethan's deceit during private negotiations, subtly highlighting his lack of transparency and the emotional distress he had inflicted upon me. The resulting settlement was more than fair. I was awarded a significant portion of our community property, including the house, the sanctuary he had so carelessly defiled. Considering the length of our marriage, the income disparity between Ethan and me, and the emotional turmoil I had endured, Mr. Thompson successfully argued for and secured a reasonable amount of spousal support for a defined period, providing me with a crucial financial buffer as I navigated this new chapter of my life. My revenge, as it unfolded, wasn't a dramatic confrontation splashed across social media or a vengeful campaign of public humiliation. It was the quiet, resolute act of taking back control of my life, ensuring my financial security, and refusing to be a victim. Ethan lost not only his wife and the comfortable life we had built together, but also a significant portion of his assets and his carefully constructed image of a devoted husband. The financial implications of the divorce served as a constant, tangible reminder of his betrayal and the price he had paid for his infidelity. As for Chloe, while California law doesn't allow for direct legal action against a third party in cases of infidelity, the archaic laws around alienation of affection have largely been abolished in most states. The social consequences of her actions were quite evident. Once our mutual friends and acquaintances learned the full extent of her involvement in the demise of our marriage, the social landscape shifted dramatically. Many, who had initially accepted her at Ethan's insistence, quietly distanced themselves. Her reputation as a homewrecker began to precede her, casting a shadow over her personal and, I later heard, even her professional life as a freelance graphic designer. While I never actively sought to ostracize her or damage her career, the truth, once brought to light, had its own way of rippling through our shared social circles and having its inevitable consequences. It's been a year since the divorce was finalized. I still live in the same house, the house that once held so many dreams of a shared future with Ethan. Now, it feels different. The air is lighter, the energy my own. I've repainted the living room in a brighter, more vibrant color, and the rooms feel filled with my own choices and my own spirit. I finally adopted that golden retriever we had always talked about, naming him Chance, a furry, four-legged reminder that even after the deepest betrayals, there's always a chance for a fresh start, for unconditional love. The sharp sting of Ethan's betrayal still surfaces occasionally, a fleeting ache in my chest, especially during quiet evenings or when I stumble upon old photos. But these moments are becoming fewer and further between, gradually being overshadowed by a growing sense of empowerment and inner resilience. I have painstakingly rebuilt my life, focusing on my career, pursuing new hobbies, and nurturing the relationships with my true friends and supportive family. My revenge wasn't fueled by malice or a desire for retribution in the traditional sense. It was about self-preservation, about reclaiming my own happiness and sense of self-worth after being so deeply wounded. It was about proving to Ethan, and more importantly, to myself, that I was stronger than his deceit, that I deserved a life filled with genuine love, unwavering respect, and authentic connection. And in the end, that quiet strength, that secure and independent future I meticulously crafted for myself, feels like the most satisfying and enduring revenge of all.